Hi, this is Coach Dan Williams with Character Advantage, and I'm going to talk to you today about potential and time and the stress and anxiety that we feel as parents or as coaches as we're dealing with trying to develop the potential in a player with the limited amount of time that we have. And I discovered a way through that stress and anxiety that I think will be helpful for you today. So when we think about potential, there's two things that I began to realize that I was facing, and they were causing stress or concern, or they were also opening opportunity. One was passion. You know, we want to develop the passion in our athletes for developing their potential. We want to fuel that passion. That passion is what gets them up early in the morning. It's what, applies them to, the development of the skill. It's what keeps them in the game. Passion is the thing that we want to develop, right? Now, there's another part of passion, though, that I've realized, and it's kind of like a double-edged sword. Because passion also can get us into trouble. Passion, sometimes from the perspective of the coach or the parent, maybe we start to get frustrated with the lack of development that we begin to see in the potential of that player. And so we begin to get anxious, or we begin to get stressed out, or we begin to be concerned, and it starts to become evident in the way that we're addressing our athlete. And so, that part of passion is something we have to be concerned about, and certainly something we have to be looking at, whether we're a coach or a parent. The other side of potential that I began to see as a challenge was how I dealt with truth. Truth is a wonderful revealer, right? Truth, just kind of, gives us a black and white of where we are in the development of our potential. But at the same time, truth is kind of like that double-edged sword as well. There's a good part of truth that we love because it brings light to the situation, but there's another part of truth that we don't like so much, and that kind of reveals the distance, the gap that there is between us and maybe those that we're competing against, or others on our team, or where we are in our development. And so that begins to bring a certain level of heightened concern, or it changes the attitude, it changes the environment, the context of our conversations. And those two things, the double-edged aspect of passion and truth were something that I began to realize that I had to navigate when it came to potential. Now, when it came to time, I began to realize two things as well. Time it goes by so fast. Before you know it, the season's over. Before you know it, you've missed that moment. And those are the two things I began to discover about time. When we think about time in the context of sport, it comes in seasons. It comes in a rhythm. There's a particular order to the way that things are structured. The other part of time that I began to realize and capture was moments. And moments come and go, but those moments are powerful. And so those two things, when we think about time, are very helpful, or what I found to be very helpful, seasons and moments. But there were two things that I began to realize, that there were two things that were pulling me in two different directions. One was this, I kind of describe it like a river. I felt like there was one river, and that was the river of hurry. And man, when you get caught up in hurry, before you know it, you lose sight of the season, you lose the opportunities of the moment. Hurry has this tendency to just take you down the river, and before you know it, you realize you're further away from where you want to be. The other was this river of urgency. And that was good, though. You wanted to be on that river. You wanted to help your player and your athletes kind of get into that moment of urgency or begin to understand the urgency of where they were in the season. You know, urgency is a wonderful place to be. It's a wonderful river to be on in the flow of urgency because, you know, it keeps you focused. It keeps you, disciplined. It keeps you, prioritizing the things that you need to be attending to in that moment or in that particular time of the season. But I discovered something, and this is the way through that I want to share with you. In Ireland, there is these walls that have been around since 3,800 BC. And they were built without any mortar, without any cement. They were just stones. And people would find these stones in the fields and they would want to plant their crops in those fields. And so in order to do that, they'd have to take all the stones out of the field and they would stack them up. You know, and there's nothing around to provide safety and shelter from the wind and the cold. And so they would begin to take these stones and repurpose them to build walls in places where they would live. They just took the stone as it was and began to lay it down, one on top of another, side by side, as they built that wall. And if they did make a mistake and maybe there was something that would go wrong, they would have to go back and they would have to take the rock off, one by one and then rebuild from there. But it was this process by which they would discern and identify the size and use the skill that they knew from practice. And they would piece these stones together and build these walls that we even see today. They've last this long. And what I began to realize through this image of stones was the reality is my role as a parent, my role as a coach is really building these walls to protect from all of these things that come at us when it comes to potential unfulfilled and when it comes to time that's fleeting and running so fast. That we have to protect our athletes and our players by building these walls. And these walls are made of stones of remembrance. What we're building on is we're remembering the things that we've accomplished. We're remembering the growth that we've witnessed in their development of their potential. We're remembering those things. We're reminding them of the progress that they're making. We're not always quick to just jump to the gaps, the distance between where they want to be and where they maybe are in the truth of that moment. We're helping them understand the other truth in the moment, which is how far they've come and how far they've gotten to. And those are the things that we want to do as parents and as coaches. We want to build those kinds of walls that are going to stand the test of time. And we just have to take what we have, those moments that we have. We have to take the seasons as they come. We don't get to decide what we want in that moment. We just have to take whatever size stone that is, and we have to begin to build the wall one after another. And if we build it wrong, we have to take it down and go back down to where we have a good firm foundation and rebuild from there. And those are the kinds of things that I began to learn as a parent and as a coach, was my way through all of this stress and anxiety that I was feeling as I was facing potential and time. Now, I hope that's helpful for you as you begin to consider both of those things. And I can't wait to share more about how character can be an advantage for you.